Hi, I'm Mike. I'm an addict, an alcoholic, all the above. Okay. If you join me in the serenity prayer, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change things I cannot, and wisdom to know the difference. Uh, okay. Eli told me he was recording me tonight, so I'm like a little nervous about that. I was like, usually I let it rip. Now I'm like, I got this in the back of my mind, like, okay, try not to let it rip too hard here. So like, all right. I have my sober dates September 15th, 2018. I have a home group, and that's morning meditation over at Crosby Hall. We meet every morning at 6:45, and I have a sponsor and I sponsor guys, and I think that's the gist of it, right? So, anyway, so about 10 days before my sober date, I was thinking about where I wanted to start this. This is kind of what I was into. I was hanging over there at the GAT, and nice place if you've ever been there, and I was wasted. Okay, like that where you're like my head was on the bar type thing, and I was with all my friends and stuff like that. And this girl was over there, and I was sitting next to her, and she like was fiddling around her purse, and she got out this thing of pills, and I was like, gave her one of those looks, and she like opened the thing, and they just spilled all over the bar, and I was just kind of, my head was on the bar, and I was just like, they just all went in, and everybody looked at me in like horror, just like, holy shit, man, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I'm gonna wash these down with a beer, come on. I'm just, I'm all in my own world. And about an hour later, I looked over at this other girl. I was like, hey, man, I was like, tell this girl that, I wasn't feeling nothing, and I was like, tell this girl that her pills suck, as best I got. And she's like, Mike, she's like, look, those are her heartburn medication. They don't get you high. That just makes you an asshole. And I was like, all right. So that's kind of what was going on. Yeah. So let me think here. I don't know. I could go through the whole childhood. When I started, I got sober in AA. So when I started, over there, it was, my parents were, the worst. You know what I mean? Not so bad. You know what I mean? They were trying. Grew up in Canton, Fulton, and that's just, I don't know, it was Canton, Fulton, it's a little town and whatever. We just, if that town ran out of like Bush Light or Marlboro Lights, we'd be broke, and that's kind of how it was. And so, that's what we did. We just hung around, we went to school, and just got wasted on the weekends and went to football games and did little, stupid stuff like that. And anyway, so, it gets good, like, I don't know, I made my way through high school and all this, that, and the other. And made it through college and stuff like that, barely, that was my second try, whatever. And, anyway, the story starts getting good. By the time I got to detox, I owned a bar. Okay. And I didn't need to own a bar. I was the last guy in the world that needed to own a bar. All right. And anybody that ever saw me do cocaine at that bar is a liar. Okay. But what was going on was, I went and, I was married, I had 4 kids, and I got this bar as like an investment. And I was just like, oh, it's gonna be great. You know what I mean? And so I was about 32. I'm 47 now, so I was about 32 when I got into the bar biz, and it was everything you think it was. You know what I mean? It was just a constant influx of party, and that's pretty much what was going on. And I loved every single minute of it until I didn't. And so I went, and it was just when I got into the bar biz, I was 32, married, 4 kids. By the time, house, cars, all of it, you know what I mean? Just this, like, my whatever, I guess it would have been my aunt-in-law. She used to always tell me, she's like, you have everything that a man wants. You know what I mean? Because I got a nice family, nice wife, everything was really nice, And I got into this bar biz, and I didn't know anything about the disease of addiction. I didn't know anything about anything. You know what I mean? I didn't know anything. And so I didn't know what I was doing was like this predetermined path that I was on, you know what I mean? From the moment I took my first, my first drink, you know what I'm saying? I didn't realize that it was going to end up, and I'm just right on course, right on course with how this thing goes. It builds us up and then tears us down, and then I'm trapped. Anyway, so I'm in this bar biz, and we're, making money, we're doing the deal and having a good time. It was just got to be where it was like I was down there like on Thursdays. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I'm gonna go check in. I'm gonna go home, be a dad. Kids got games on the weekends, this, that, and the other. I don't want to go and get too drunk. You know what I mean? I got to wake up early, and then next thing you know, I'm on there, and I'm on Thursdays and Fridays. You know what I mean? Then I'm Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then next thing you know, I'm down there like every single day of the week, and there was always something that drew me down. And for me, if you would ask me back then, it wasn't the alcohol that was drawing me down. I was like, oh, toilet's clogged up. I got to be the guy to go get it. Oh, while I'm down here, I'm going to do, get into some, let's party. You know what I mean? Might as well. And, there's always something, you know what I mean? And when I went in there, I didn't realize this. I can see this now, but I was the center of attention. You know what I mean? It was like when Dad goes swimming in the swimming pool, like, oh my God, Dad's here. It was just like, Mike's here. And, it was a lot, and I loved it. And so, I loved it then, now I, look at that from an entirely different angle. And so, anyway, ran the bar, and about 5-6 years into that bar, I'm having people tell me like, hey, Mike, you got to like slow down, and I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? I don't have any idea what that means. That means that I'm not doing something right. You know what I mean? So I'm like sitting here, I'm like, oh, that means we need new bar stools, or I got to repaint or something like that. You know what I mean? I got to I'm trying to change the outside environment. Like there's something going on, And so anyway, about 8 years into it, this is when it really starts crumbling in my lap. I wake up one morning and I'm in my house. Okay, I used to live in Massillon. Now I'm in Canton. All right, and it's one of those mornings, and I don't want to check my phone because I know, you know what I mean. I just know what happened, but I don't know what happened. I wake up and I'm like, what happened last night? I'm trying to put together the morning, and I just had this feeling of dread. I'm like, I was like, I'm just not gonna check my phone until noon, And I'm like, I go over there. I'm like, sitting there, like, I don't want to even see if my car's in the driveway because I don't remember getting home last night. And if it was, if it is there, either like somebody drove my car here, you know what I mean, or like I just don't want to know. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna go try and wash this hangover off. You know what I mean? So I'm in the shower, and it's all like I'm just feeling sick. You know what I mean? I'm just feeling like hell, and it kind of hits me all right then and there. And I'm like, holy, I'm just like, now I am like, it's just like, oh my God, man. Like, I just realized like I'm divorced now, and I had not planned on being divorced. I only see my kids half the time. And that means that they only see me half the time. And, and I'm in Canton now, and I was living in Mass. I mean, I had this whole life, you know what I mean? This whole life. And like that, it was just gone and over. And I was just kind of coming to, so I was having one of those, like what they call like those moments of clarity. And I'm there and I'm really freaking out. You know what I mean? I'm really freaking out because I was just like, I'm on my own. That's really what I was freaking out about. I had nobody there. I was just like, man, I got to do this. I got this house, and, Canton isn't as cool as about property taxes as I would be, It's like, and so, I'm just like, oh man, and it's hitting me. It's like, man, people are telling me to slow down. And I was like, maybe they are telling me to stop drinking, and partying and stuff like that. Anyway, so alcohol is my drug of choice. And so they're telling me like, maybe it's time to stop. I'm sitting there thinking like, maybe it's time to stop drinking. And so I'm like, that's it. I can't handle, alcohol is the problem. You know what I mean? It's not me. It's like, that's the problem. And I was like, and so that was the best I could come up with. And I was like, fine, I'm going to stop drinking. That's how it is. That was about, 3 years before my sobriety date. You know what I mean? And so I go in and I don't realize that like the beast is like here. You know what I'm saying? It's close. And I don't realize that it's just standing here laughing at me because I forgot my big book in the car, but I have no idea what's in that book. I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I have no idea what recovery is. I didn't even know this stuff existed. And I just have no idea on how to stop drinking. I'm just teasing the disease and just going around and around in circles and spinning my wheels. And so I decided to stop drinking. I go into my bedroom and, and here it is. You know what I mean? I'm now like 5 minutes sober. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's going, why don't you just like cut out, cut out the whiskey. You know what I'm saying? Just cut it out, dude. Like people only say you're horrible when you're drinking that. Why don't you drink like Coors Light? Because nobody ever gets in trouble drinking Coors Light. And that's it. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, and I'm like, that's a really good idea. And here I am, and I'm like, in this midst of like 10 minutes sober, I'm like, yeah, okay, here we go. Look, I'm going to save all this money drinking Coors Light. I'm going to go now I can probably start working out. You know what I mean? And I'm going to get a new car, all this shit in the matter of like 10 minutes. And that's how my mind was working. You know what I mean? And that was it. And I thought I had it figured out. So now I'm running back down to the bar that I just got kicked out of and own. And I'm just like, and they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, well, I'm here to drink Coors Light. You know what I'm saying? Like I figured it out. And so then it's all going, you know what I mean? And that's not it. I have a bunch of those and I'm like, this stuff sucks. You know what I mean? I need to move on, you know what I mean? But I'm a man of my word. I'm going to stay away from the whiskey. So why don't you give me like tequila? And that whole thing just went like this, you know what I mean? And ultimately what happened was, some guy told me at the bar, this guy was really smart. He told me that I was not alcoholic. And that I did not have a problem with drinking, that I was self-medicating. And I liked that a lot. I was like, I am. I was like, if you had my pain, you'd self-medicate too. And he's like, have you thought about getting on these pills, some mental health pills? And I like mental health now has a whole different, aspect rather than just taking pills. You know what I'm saying? There's like reading, there's, working, mind, body, spirit. There's a whole thing. But, there's like, back then I thought, hey, Klonopin sounds like a great idea. If it works for you, it's going to work for me. And so what was going on for this like last 2 years, what was going on was it went from like drinking to Klonopin. I was able to stay sober on Klonopin for a little while, you know what I mean? But what goes good with Klonopin is, an ice cold beer, you know what I mean? And so what was going on was it was like from drinking to Klonopin, like, holy shit, this stuff's kicking my ass to like, I'm just going to quit everything and be the weed guy, but I don't like weed. So I'm like, so now I'm just going around. I'm like, man, I'm just going to go back and try and drink like I did when I was 18 years old again, when everything was fun. So I'm just going to drink Busch Light. You know what I mean? I'm like, God, this ain't cutting it, and so I'm just going around and around and around and around. And what I'm doing is diving deeper and deeper and deeper into addiction. I have no idea that I'm doing that. I'm sitting there trying to figure this thing out one last time. And that landed me into the detox. You know what I mean? It finally on September 14th, 2018, like I couldn't take it anymore. And that was my, I went to the detox and I don't know if anybody in here has ever, been to a detox, but I didn't have very much fun there. It was like, they took my phone, they wouldn't let me outside, they took my clothes, and I was like, this is what's going on here. This is the help I'm getting. And so anyway, so I was there and they kept me in that detox 10 days, man. And that's a long time to detox. You know what I mean? I think I was pretty detoxed after about 4 days, but I must have said something to somebody. I don't know. But on the last day, the doctor comes in and he's talking to me. He's like, who's Mike? And he's talking to me about, I think it was about like getting on Vivitrol or something like that. And I was like, fine. So, I'm thinking like, great. You know what I mean? And then he's like, and I want you to go to this AA meeting, which is morning meditation. And I was like, I don't know, man. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I got to pick up my, I'm doing the shuffle. I'm like, I got to pick up my kids. I got to go to work. I got to do this. I'm busy. You know what I mean? And he's like, well, we're there on Tuesdays, and I'm sitting there thinking like, man, I have not ever known anybody that got sober on Tuesday. I'm not starting this on a Tuesday. There's no way. And what ended up happening was I was arguing with him, and he was not taking my crap. And then he just looked at me deadpan in the face and said, look, we're there every morning, be there. And for whatever reason, my mind blanked out, and I was just like, okay. And then I just sat there and I was like, man, looks like I'm, it wasn't necessarily going to the meeting. It was just the commitment to be sober. You know what I mean? That's what I didn't want. I still had this fight in me that I wanted to figure it out one more time. You know what I mean? And I just wasn't ready, but I was scared, I was scared, to look bad in the eyes of my now ex-wife who knew I was in the detox and knew, I was everything, just wasn't a good look. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a good look for the kids. I missed my daughter's birthday and everything. And it was not a good look. And so what it did for me, what working in the program did for me was, it was like I could go and exchange the kids with her now and be able, the steps gave me like the ability to like look her in the eye and say, look, I know that that I'm a screw up, okay? But I'm in this program, okay? So why don't you lay off? You know what I'm saying? Like that was it in my mind. Same thing as when I still owned the bar, and I only owned that bar for a couple months after after I got out of the detox. But I could go down there, and get the money out of the safe and pay the bills and stuff like that, and look at those bartenders and be like, look, I know that that I'm a screw up, okay? But I'm in this program now, and I'm trying to do better. You know what I'm saying? So it was a shield. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It shielded me from the people, places, things that were going to suck me back in, and I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? I had no clue that was what was even going on. I'm just, they told me work it, and I worked it. So, after a while. So I sat there for about 3 months. It was hard to sit there for 3 months. I didn't want to crack the book. I didn't want to go and I didn't want to listen or talk to anybody. I just want to sit in the back and see what I could. My mentality was, I got myself into this thing. I'm going to get myself out. I don't need anybody's help. I don't want to know anybody. And that was what was going on. You know what I mean? And I just was sitting there miserable, man, miserable. Just like that. When I look back at like my total life right now, like that was the most miserable time of my entire life. I was just reeling. You know what I mean? I could not make sense out of anything. I was going crazy, because I'm like not working a program and I'm not like getting wasted. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm in that in between. So I'm going nuts. My mind is just a hamster wheel. And I remember I just would sit on my couch all day, just sitting there thinking like I broke my brain, and I was just like, I broke my brain. I couldn't make sense out of anything. And so I went and, anyway, I was sitting there for about 3 months, like the smartest guy in the room. You know what I mean? I was sitting there going like, man, I don't know what these people are talking about, but I'm buying it, And then after about 3 months, this guy walks up to me, and I had been dodging him for a couple meetings because he kept coming up. He's like, hey, trying to introduce himself. And I was like, I don't want any of this. And he came up and said, after about the third meeting he came up and said, hey, do you need some help? And my mind said, get the hell away from me. But my mouth accidentally said yes, and I was just like, and then he said, do you want my number? And again, it was like, no, but my mind said, yeah. And then he said, call me later, or it was something like that. It was really early on. I can't remember. So we got busy, you know what I mean? We got busy, we got down to it. And, we talked, and I had all, I was just like, all this stuff in the beginning, just problems, you know what I mean? Just problems everywhere. And and he kept me focused enough to work through the steps. You know what I mean? And that was a godsend. I don't know how he did it, because man, my mind was just going crazy. But what they say is that God puts people in our lives that we can understand until we can understand God. And that was exactly what happened. And this guy, you know, I didn't see this. I just thought he was some crazy old man, you know what I mean, that was driving me around to meetings. And I was just, you know, just sitting there listening to me and this, that, and the other. And what happened was I didn't realize that the time that we were together, you know, what he was doing was he's just dragging me over to the spiritual side of things. And I didn't realize this, because he's asking me things like, you know, like, why do you think that happened? You know what I mean? Like, you know, why do you think that happened in God's world? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. You know what I mean? That was my first answer. But then after working with him for like 8 months, you know what I mean? I'm starting to have some answers of my own. You know, I'm starting to have some reasonable spiritual thoughts that, you know, make sense. And it felt good. So we worked through the steps, and we had a good time doing it. You know what I mean? We had a really good time doing it. I can't say, you know, he was rough on me. He didn't take my crap or anything like that, but it was just, you know, it was just the way it had to be. You know what I mean? Just the only thing guy who's telling me for the first 2 months we were together is, Mike, you're on a pedestal, you're on a pedestal, you're on a pedestal, over and over and over again. And I'm just like, no, I'm not. But I didn't even know what really that meant. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, you know, like it's just, I just didn't even really know what he was even talking about. But what he was saying was that my ego was just way out of control, you know? And now I get that. And I mean, I can't say that it's in control all the time or not, you know what I mean? Right now. I mean, I know when I start feeling sick again, you know what I mean? I can tell, but, you know, and I know where to go, you know, I know where, you know, take it back to God, you know what I mean? But looking back on those days, you know, it was just, you know, I was a mess. So he helped me get straightened out. And then I did every single thing that he said to do. If he told me, like, he would on a whim get ticked off at me or something like that and tell me to read how it works, I'd go read it. You know what I mean? Because I knew I'd heard in the meeting so much about that connection between sponsor and sponsee, that's supposed to be, you know, God puts those people together. And I was like, okay, so I took that, everything he said, I took verbatim, like it was coming from God. And I was like, even if whatever, I didn't care. So if he told me, and then I did everything he told me to do, except, you know, around a year, I was feeling real good. I was like, man, this is good. Time to get that girlfriend and car that I wanted when I first got sober. And he, you know, saw the girl I wanted to date, and he's like, I no. That's what he said. No. And now I know what he meant. It was like old ideas. You know what I mean? And she was not one of us, and she was not sober. And I was like, what could go wrong, man? This is going to be great. And so then we ended up parting ways. He didn't exactly feel the need that I needed his sponsorship anymore. And I ended up getting with that doctor who had told me to go to AA in the first place. And he said the same thing. Like, girl, I know, good for you. You know what I mean? He told me for a year and a half. You know what I mean? I'd call him up. He's like, you still with her? And I was like, yeah. He's like, didn't you? What? And so anyway, we had a good time. And then he moved, and then I got a new sponsor, and so I'm on sponsor number 3, and he just lives right up in Canton. He's a wild man. I freaking love him to death. And so, but I talk to him almost every single day, and I still do what I'm told. And that was one thing that I learned in the program was like how to like stay out of my own way sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes, you know, because I'll get in my own way without ever even knowing it until it's too late, and then I'm just like, oh, I did it again, you know. But I always learn from it. So anyway, so that's kind of what happened. When I went and they introduced, you know, when RD took me through the steps in the first place. You know, I was there and I was doing the first 3 steps, and I was like, okay. I was still trying to figure out what was going on, you know, what you guys were talking about. And then we started getting into the 4th step, and it felt pretty good. I was like, okay, this is the stuff. This is the good stuff. Like, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I don't know if anybody's in here that's ever done a drug or something like that. But, you know, when you get a hold of some stuff, it's like, man, this is good shit. You know what I mean? It's like, and you're just like, why is it? Because it's powerful. And when I was doing those steps, that's exactly the same way I felt. It was like, this stuff is powerful. You know what I mean? And I was able to be honest, as honest as I could back then. And I was like, this is good stuff, man. This is good. And so, so once I got hooked on the steps, it was like, let's see how far we can take these things. You know what I mean? It was just like, I wanted to learn everything about everything. You know, I was like a sponge. So, and I still am. So, I still do. So what keeps me sober today? I usually wake up in the morning and, I get a little email with the daily reflections, read that thing. I drop to my knees and say third step prayer and ask God to keep me sober for the day. Head over to my meeting. In the morning, most of the time I got some that I bounce around at in the mornings. Morning time is a good time for me to get a meeting in. And then I surround myself with sober people all day. You know what I mean? I just do, you know, it's just how it turned out. You know what I'm saying? And I try and stay in the middle of the beam, and I take it to God all the time. Like, that is the go-to, is I take it to God all the time. And I'm sitting there and I'm constantly trying to figure out, you know, they had some 24-hour reading a couple days ago about the puzzles being put back together, you know. And the thing is that I realized is like, that's not my puzzle. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of like a piece of that. You know what I mean? A piece that fits in with some other pieces. And so, so I'm constantly trying to figure out like where'd that come from? You know what I mean? Like, where's that coming from? You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of, you know, they say after step 10, like, we enter the world of the spirit. That's where everything makes sense. So I'm constantly trying to figure out, like, where's that coming from? You know, where's that make sense in life right now? And there's been a whole bunch that has been making sense lately. And so it's been pretty good. Those two fine young gentlemen, actually three, John, Eli, and Miguel, we've been working together over on a place over on the southwest side, hoping to get into some like sober living for some guys, because there's definitely need for that right now. And we've been motoring through that thing, working like beasts for the past couple weeks or week or whatever it is. I don't know. And so that's the thing. But we're sitting there, we're just, you know, like, you know, it's easy to, you know, we're doing like construction thing like that. It'd be easy to sit there and think like, we're just talking about girls and whatever else I used to talk about. But no, we're not. We're talking about like, you know, like, what's God doing? What are we, you know, where are we at? Where does this make sense? Where is this? It's just a totally different ball game nowadays. And it feels good. And I'm not getting in trouble. And it's been a good time. So, and all that, man, that's a whole nother story of how all that came together. Because that just all fell in my lap. And it's, you know, everybody did. You know what I mean? We all did. We all just fell in each other's laps. And it's like, okay, what are we supposed to be doing today? Putting on barn doors. You know what I mean? Whatever. We're just goofing around. You know? So anyway, okay. I think that's pretty much all I got. So thank you. Thanks, Eli. And thanks for listening. So.